What are your thoughts when you think of a dentist? Do you think dental care? Do you think that, oh, they're going to fill my cavities? I need to go there every 6 months. That's pretty much what we think about. But did you know that in the past, dentists were considered physicians? This is something that has changed. Well, when I walked into Dr. Claire Stagg's office, who's a dentist in every sense of the word, classically trained, I felt that I was walking into a physician's office as opposed to a dental office. I've been checked and probed and looked at everywhere so that Dr. Claire Stagg can figure out what is going on with me. As you know, I'm a healthy eater. But there is a lot of things that food is not the only thing. There's other things too. So I am transparent with you. I want you to know, for someone that eats as healthy as I do, there are some symptoms that I need to figure out. Well, and I walk into Dr. Stagg's office, and how do you know? She's looking at so many different things that start in the mouth. Now, that being said, we have Dr. Stagg with us today, and we're going to be talking about her mentors. What made her become who she is today as a dentist and physician? Get your paper out and pencil, because we're going to learn a lot together.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. If this is your first time tuning in, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. And I am so grateful that you, Dr. Claire Stagg, are here to do just that. I'm so grateful to you because I'm learning about your mentors. And so share a little bit about your background and how it was that you stumbled upon or discovered. How did you learn about these three men that you carry with you everywhere you go? Oh, and by the way, great book. For those of you
Thank you.
who are ready, the book is almost out on May 7th. It's coming out, and there's going to be a virtual online coming out party.
Yes.
So let's learn more. That's right, with Dr. Claire Stagg. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Stagg, and how did you learn about these physicians that were also dentists?
Right. So actually all three of them were dentists, but it was Dr. Al Fonder who coined the term dental physician, saying that we're actually just not dentists, because there's this, oh, you're just a dentist sort of philosophy out there, or you're just a chiropractor, or you're just this, unless you have the MD connotation behind your name. Well, we're actually extremely qualified neurological bioengineers, if you will, because we actually look at the whole body, and we are in charge of the one part that houses all the nerves, that motor. It's like the motherboard, if you will, of the body. The cranium houses the cranial nerves. There's 12 of them, that most of them we are in charge of, that are connected to everything that we do in the mouth. We also go ahead and regulate airway, which helps you thrive or survive. And so in effect, what happens is the dentistry of yore was actually the dentistry that was being done in a whole body aspect, that somehow the baby got thrown out with the bath water in the last century with the sugar pandemic, to where we became drill, fill, and bill doctors, to where we had to take care of a crisis, which was to go ahead and to take care of decay and then periodontal disease. But my goal would be to educate the layperson to go ahead and understand that there's more to it than just the filling aspect of the teeth.
Absolutely. And I've been a beneficiary of all these years of research. And these mentors were Al Fonder, which you already mentioned him, Weston Price, and Royal Lee. Now, I knew about Weston Price, but I did not
Yes.
know about Al Fonder, and I did not know about Royal Lee. So how did you stumble upon them? Or is this part of when you were becoming a dentist, that they were part of your lessons and that you learned?
So, nothing happens by chance, and then it's only afterwards. I think Steve Jobs says it's only afterwards that we can connect the dots and see how they all connected. Um, I think what happens is you hear of something, and then you hear of something, then you hear of something, then you hear of something, but it's nebulous and it's all out there. It's slowly but surely that you start figuring out, oh, I've heard that somewhere. Oh, it was that person. And then you hear something again. Oh, it was that person. And you hear something again. It was that person. And then you deep dive into what that person's work was. And then you realize there's a lot more to it than what you thought originally. So if you want to take each one, we'll start with Weston Price, for example. Weston Price was a doctor. He was an orthodontist in New York who closed his practice in the late 1800s, because he was one who found that all his patients were having major malocclusions. Now, why all of a sudden in 1890 or 95 are all these kids not being able to have all their teeth in their mouth? So what happened is he decided that he was going to close his practice and traveled all around the world to indigenous tribes and discovered that they had perfect airways, that they had room for all 32 teeth, that they had everything available to them to survive properly. Okay, so that was Dr. Weston Price, who happened also to be the doctor who was also the president of the American Dental Association. He was also one who did a lot of research proving that there was a connection between pathogens or bacteria that were in dentally treated or root canal treated teeth that were dead, and that if they took the same tooth that failed, root canal treated tooth, and put it under the skin of the rabbit will create or have the same diseases that the patient had. So he was instrumental in doing a lot of research and also a lot of expansion. He worked a lot on patients, for example, Down syndrome. I mean, he was a very learned man, extremely learned. His book, I have it here, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. So that is amazing. And so to answer, just talk about him, you could connect him with nutrition. You can connect him with airway. You can connect him with orthopedics, arch expansion. You can connect him with hormonal imbalances. You can connect him with general dentistry, with root canal treatments. You can connect him with orthopedics. You can connect him with fillings. I mean, okay, so how do you differentiate one person's work? Because in actuality, that's why in the book, it's like when I was writing the book, he had all the connections in his work. All right, so that was Dr. Price. He created the Pottinger Institute. They did that. And also Weston Price is known for their diets. Interestingly enough, it's really cool. I had a family with 3 children. The first one, total narrow arches, total issues with their health and nasal passages and everything. Very, very narrow arches. The parents found out about Weston Price, but the second child started getting the benefit of the diet, and the third one was totally only Weston Price diet by the mouth of an ashtray. I mean, it was that big. So you could see it, that even though that was the past to where, it was very possible to have all your teeth and large airways and be healthy. And then we went down the rabbit hole with the sugar and the refined and processed foods. But their parents who are awake and are realizing, wait a minute, my child's not well. Why are they not well? And researching nutrition and the value of the foods that they're giving their children and how they breathe. And within the same family, you got 3 different looking kids. I mean, really, that's really cool. So that's Dr. Price that the average person would know about.
I want
Dr.
to ask you before we switch from Dr. Price,
Sure.
what
Yes.
was the nutrition he advocated?
Well, what I found stunning is that in the book itself, you have the tribal family. And when the white man, so to speak, in the tribes, for example, this is one example, and it's the example that I have in the book. You have 2 sisters, one that went to the village and worked with the missionaries or whatever, and then the other sister who stayed within the tribal family that ate the common dietary foods that they would eat for that region, for that time in their lives, etc. It was their common staple diet, you know, their roots, their legumes, their whatevers. And then you have the one that went to the village that ate all the royal, you know, all the treats, the white cakes, the breads, whatever. I mean, whatever they were, right? But the dichotomy is that within the same siblings, like sisters that were siblings, you have one that looks exactly the same tribal broad arch traits, how they would normally look. And then you got the other one that's super narrow, long, and major dental crowding. And then, believe it or not, it's the one that was the eldest sister that was the better looking one because she could breathe. And the one who'd gone to the village ended up being drawn and sickly. So even within the same family, you could see the disparity, just like I shared with you, those children within the same local. I mean, this is in America, 2015, well, maybe 2014, 15, 16, you had a 10-year-old kid that was super narrow, and then you got a 4-year-old kid that has a super wide palate. So it's very reproducible. It's very understandably reproducible. It's just you have to know what you're dealing with, and you have to go back to the root cause. Why did these patients go down the rabbit hole? All I'm doing is bringing it back.
Yes, and so when you said it, they eat like their tribal, the legumes, but did they eat a primarily vegetarian diet, or did they have a lot of meat products in their diet?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It
So
doesn't matter. It's you. So you'll see in the indigenous in the
indigenous.
older days, the
Mhm.
indigenous, they ate for the seasons. So they'll eat a diet for the winter season. They'll eat a diet for the spring. They
Got
eat a
it.
diet for the summer. They eat a diet for the fall. They'll eat a diet with the moon. They'll eat a diet with the sun. They'd eat a diet if they were herbivores or if they were carnivores. I mean, everything was different. They lived off the land, and at the time, the land was rich. It was a give and take between Gaia and Earth, and it was a communal thing, and they lived off the land and they lived together as community. Whereas now, I mean, how many people do you know plant anything? They go to the grocery store and a lot of the stuff is GMO or processed, or I mean,
Sugar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the people that went to the village, they were eating more processed, more sugars, more refined versus the people that were in the tribe. So it's a mental note for us that when we are eating seasonally and we're eating foods that are not processed, our children will develop a much better palate. What's happening today is that they're getting baby food. They're sucking everything up now. They're sucking it through. They're getting applesauce through a tube, and they're sucking it up, and they're getting all this stuff and they're not developing their jaw. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That too, right. But I think the most important thing to understand is this, is that if you develop the right way, which means if you swallow properly, if you go ahead, like you mentioned, eating and chewing, all right? If you go ahead and you eat the right foods, but also you give your body the right nutrients and you breathe through your nose, what happens is the palate and the teeth, they develop well, and then you can grow properly. Your cranium it works. Everything comes in together and you literally go straight. And that's where Dr. Fonda comes in, and that's where Dr. Royal Lee come in, and also Dr. Price. All 3 of them, some of them worked together, some of them knew each other. I mean, they worked with people who had Nobel Prizes. They were awarded Nobel Prizes. It's not like it's just like woo-woo stuff or stuff that I'm making up. No, these people were well known in their times. They were awarded Nobel Prizes where with posture, with structure, with the way the bodies were formed. And what I find interesting is to think that a man who probably, I mean, he left his business, he left his practice, he left everything and just went off in the wild and traveled around the world. And you talk about 6 indigenous, I mean, that's years and years and years of travel. And to write a book about it that's available to the public for free, I might add, take advantage of it. I mean, it's there for you for the reading. And make your own conclusion. What may work for one family may not work for the other.
Yeah.
But what I think is the most important thing is the awareness. People have to know that these things are important. And then they have to know why they're important. And then they have to know, okay, if I have something, okay. So for example, most kids nowadays are not getting enough vitamin D. All right. There's a huge lack of vitamin D. Most of the kids that we see who have obstructive sleep apnea that's been diagnosed by a physician are lacking basic nutritional samples. So if you go ahead and say, well, what's the child getting? Well, they'll get chicken. Yeah. Okay. Well, what kind of chicken? Oh, chicken nuggets with mac and cheese. And it's like, okay, where's the vegetable in that? Where's the non-processed, non-altered, where's the natural part? Where's the part that can really help you grow?
Well, but when you mention the macaroni and cheese and the chicken nuggets, those are all processed foods that are soft to eat. When you're eating something like an animal product, that's much harder to chew. And then a vegetable, that's much harder to chew than a chicken nugget. So we're forgetting how to chew. We're forgetting how to chew, and it's not developing our palate, is what I'm hearing you say.
And don't go douse your salad in ranch dressing, for example, because then you totally defeat the whole thing. So I think what we need to clarify is that we need a cleaner diet, and we need to understand the core values of nutrition. What does constitute a clean diet? What does constitute something that could actually feed you as opposed to starve you? Because some patients, for example, and I know you and I have discussed this, you have some patients that walk in with a page or 2 pages worth of supplements, and that's really good because sometimes we do need supplementation. But then if I see a list of a page or 2 of supplements, and I'm thinking, why are you taking all these supplements? Why are you taking all this medicine? Well, my doctor said so. It's like, well, why? So I'm always a why. Why do you need these things? So there's 2 things you need to look at. 1, do you really need them? 2, why do you need them? Is it because you lack it? So why do you lack it? Is it your supply of your food supply is not providing you the nutritional supplementation, if you will, the value of the nutrients? Actually, your doctors talk about that at your conference, right?
Yes.
The value of the nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so why is your body needing all these? And or if you're supplementing them and you still have to take them and you're not absorbing them, then something's happening with your body and those pathways are not working as well as they should. So it's like calcium. All right, I have a lot of patients who have tons and tons of calcium buildup in their mouths. All right, it's like that tells me something's going on. So I'll tell them, have your functional doctor look at your calcium pathways, because a lot of times these patients will also have carotid artery blockages with calcic deposits, and that could lead to a stroke, right? So I'll tell them, okay, calcium, there's 2 pathways, and this is, by the way, standard process. They have 2 different supplementations for calcium depending on which pathway is needed. So for example, you get the calcium in your foods, you have energy producing, and it's not necessarily milk. Spinach and kale, for example, can have more calcium than milk, but you'll get calcium from your food that will go to your serum. And then from your serum, you have another pathway for calcium to go to the organ. But somewhere along the line, if one or the other pathway is not working as well, then you'll end up with a problem, right? Mm-hmm. That's when we see patients who have a lot of calculus. All right, lot of deposits, but nobody knows that really, right? So we'll go ahead and we'll try and make it to where we educate patients, then we talk to them about standard process, and we talk to them nutritionally. We actually have a code for nutritional education in the dental field, where there's actually a code for nutritional education.
That's great. That's great. And
Yeah.
so, okay, so when you talked about standard process, and many
Yes.
people may not know that it was it Dr. Royal Lee.
Royally.
He's the one that started standard process, which is supplementation. But before we go to him, one of the things that I would like to add with Weston's Price's
Price.
his research is that when you narrow the mouth, it will create crowding and the need of braces. And if for those of you parents that want to avoid this, make sure you give your children enough of healthy foods and foods that they have to chew, so it'll develop their mouth and their palate, correct?
Right. Do you want to hear a good really broad view? And I have this in my book too. One of the things Dr. Price showed was that there was a patient who was a Down syndrome patient. He was a young man. He was in his early teens, and his IQ levels weren't that great per se, but he couldn't breathe very well. What trisomy 21 is, they usually have a very flat face, which means they have a very vaulted palate and they have a lot of airway issues. What they did is they did arch expansion. So they actually widened the box. I always say, think of it like a shoe box. Think of it like a foot, like a shoe box. The shoe is the lower arch, the upper is the shoe box, but the tongue is the foot, right? What they did is they did arch expansion on him. So what that result is they opened up the upper arch, the palate, if you will. Well, guess what? The floor of the nose is the roof of the mouth. Well, what's on top of that is the sella turcica. Well, on top of that, in the sella turcica, you have the pituitary gland. What's secreted by the pituitary gland? The growth hormone. So that young man went from not being functional, hardly functional, to actually being able to assist his family and his mother in chores around the house. He grew pubic hair, developed his voice, and developed as a person simply by having a wider box, by having a wider arch, by
That's
being
amazing.
able to breathe. And he grew several inches. So that's how the
Wow.
mouth, the box is so important. And that's where arch expansion, obviously the right foods make a big difference, because if you don't eat the right foods, you won't get proper arch development. So it's like chicken and the egg, you know, I mean, you can't disconnect one from the other.
Okay. Okay. So now, which one do you want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about Al
Let,
Fonder?
let's
or-
go back to Dr. Lee. Dr.
Okay,
Lee.
Dr. Lee. Okay.
All right. So I had the pleasure of actually going to the farm. They call it the farm. When I was, I used to have the standard process products, and the rep said, Dr. Shai, would you like to go to the farm? And I said, well, I've never been to the farm, the standard process farm. And that's where I was actually blown away, because their farm is a family farm. It's in the Glacier Valleys in Wisconsin, and it's all organic. And Dr. Lee, what he did, now he was an engineer before he was a dentist. And it was because he knew how important nutrition and the mouth were that he then went to dental school. I mean, I think that's really amazing, right?
I saw
And-
that. I saw that about him, that he was an engineer. That's amazing.
Right. And I think it was at 21 that he'd already figured out Catalan. And he also figured out, in his engineering amazingness, if that's a word, he actually created a way to compact and make into tablets. So where any I want to say process, but it's not process, but any fabricated supplement or
Synthetic?
so they're not synthetic.
Oh.
They're all enzymes are still alive. They're
Oh,
all
okay.
alive.
Okay. So
Everything is still
dehydrated, did he
alive.
dehydrate it?
So you'll have to go ahead and look up on their website and how they do it. Obviously, I'm sure lots of stuff is patented and they're not going to put it out there. But the beautiful thing is that it's all alive. It's still alive. And so what I appreciated about him is that to this day, if they do any research, his first one was Catalin, which is a multivitamin, Catalin, all right? If you go ahead and you look at, if you look at Catalin, anything that you have that they discover now, and they look at it and they compare it to Catalin, Catalin already has it. It's still, he's still ahead. I mean, after all these years, he's
What-
still ahead of the curve.
You lost me with Catlin. What is Catlin?
Catlin is Standard Processes multivitamin.
Oh,
They're
so it's called
first
Catlin is
supplement.
multivitamin.
Catalyn, Catlin.
Catalin. Okay.
Now, a lot of chiropractors use Standard Process and they muscle test, and they'll go ahead and a lot of them take additional training. So Standard Process has a great following with chiropractors because they do nutritional counseling. A lot of them also do functional medicine. So they go ahead and they supplement their care with proper nutrients to help, nutraceuticals, I think you could call them, I guess, to help the body heal and grow and develop properly.
So, what else did you like about Dr. Lee that you take with you in your practice? So I'm assuming you're saying that you also use Standard Process
I recommend,
supplements.
right, I recommend Standard Process. It got to the point though that I just have too many things that I know of and I can't carry everything. So I have a code that if you're a patient, you're allowed to go ahead and under my auspice, if you will. It's like a portal to where you'll use my code and then you can drop ship and they'll send things to your house. And a lot of practices do that. Or if you're in a bind, you can go to somebody who carries Standard Process. They should have that on their website, who's the closest practitioner to you for you to get supplements. But they don't recommend that you get a supplement without being checked first, because you may be getting something that you may not really need.
Correct.
All
And
right. Just like I
that's
said,
something I want to do with you. I want to make sure that I know what are some of the supplements that I'm just peeing away. I don't
right,
need, like that commercial, this is your brain on drugs. Well, at the end it says your brain is a terrible thing to waste. Well, my money is a terrible thing to waste. So I don't want
right.
to, I want to be responsible with what I take, and I want to make sure that the supplements I take have a purpose in my body. And it
Correct.
may have had a purpose a year or 2 or 3 years ago, but it no longer serves me, right?
Exactly. And that's where I think too that a lot of people don't follow through. And that's the big differential with us dentists, is that in theory, we see you every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, or every 6 months, right? Who else touches you? Who else checks? Well, I know we do vitals, we check blood pressure, we do a lot of other things that are common for us because in a nutshell, you mentioned we're physicians, we're actually dental physicians. I think what the best terminology or best little catchy phrasey would be to say we're a dental practice that takes care of oral and medical and dental conditions. So we take care of all the things through the mouth. What do I say? Oral and okay, I got it. Oral and dental solutions, dental and oral solutions for medical conditions. There you go. That's my
Yes.
thing. It's like you got medical conditions, but you know what? You're right. The right hand hasn't talked to the left hand, hasn't checked you, and I don't know how long. And that's the other thing too. It's like tests. You could take tests, but everybody's going to interpret tests to what they've been told. But remember, everybody's in their wheelhouse and they'll be very, very, very good maybe at what they do. And you need those people, those experts. But again, they got to talk to each other because the brain has a connection to the rest of the body, including the feet, has a connection to the hips, has a connection to the neck, has a connection to everything. So if you have each one working independently, which is why I was trying to explain to you about the supplements, you can't go see an endocrinologist for your thyroid or for your diabetes, and a cardiologist for your blood pressure, and then a pulmonologist because you have COPD, but then maybe none of them have talked to each other, or maybe none of them have suggested a sleep study to show that you probably have sleep apnea, and all the things that you've been doing are comorbidities of sleep apnea. And it's like, okay, but you see, us dentists, the ones that are doing this type of dentistry, whole body dentistry, site health connections dentistry, we are actually trained. That's where the dental physicians part are coming back. That's what I want to see in the world come back, is to where we see the whole body, the whole person, the whole person. It's just not a body part. It's just not 32 pearly whites. It's a whole person. And you got to figure out how can you do to help that whole person function the best way that they're able to function. And I think that's an amazing segue to Dr. Fonder.
There we go. So let's do
Because-
Dr. Fonda
Okay,
next.
so Dr. Fonder, and I bought his book too. It's a massive one to hold at night in bed. I can guarantee you that. He went ahead and in his practice, he was a typical dentist to where he restored and did full mouth rehabs, right? And kept figuring out, wow, these patients are really getting well. And he kept thinking, well, it was because it was my dentistry that I went ahead and I'm having like a sort of relationship. The patient's having a sort of psychiatric relationship with me because they're being motivated, they're getting better, etc. But he, on his end, was still very sick. He was having a lot of the symptoms. It clicked for him one day to where he was having a lot of the symptoms that his patients were having, until he decided, let me see what if I can fix myself too. And then all his symptoms went away. And then what I like about him, as in his book, and I wrote a lot of the stuff in my book too, that's where I connected, is that there's a theory. I'm not going to bore you with the science or anything, but there's a thing called the theorem of Gouze, to where one of his students that was under him actually showed that the axis of rotation of the bite doesn't occur as the jaw joints as dentists are taught, but actually at the neck. All right.
Interesting.
Well,
Interesting.
guess what? Remember, you have the mouth. All right. And this is the one bone in the body that has the two endpoints that are affected by one bone, two joints, right? All right. They're affected by all these other endpoints that are not a joint. And these are all the teeth, right? So think the amount of power that we have as dentists to change the equilibrium here. Now, think of it as a seesaw. You got all the teeth here, the fulcrum of the seesaw here, and then the rest of the body. It's not at the jaw joint, it's actually at the axis. All right, which one's going to win? Which one, the baby or the sumo wrestler? Right?
Yeah.
All right, so if you have a bad bite or an unlevel bite, guess what happens? Your sumo wrestlers up here, the baby's all the weak part, scoliosis. And it's not me that's purporting this is in the book. All right, I'm just repeating the book. Scoliosis, and I'm not saying I can treat scoliosis. All right, I'm staying in my wheelhouse. But what I'm saying is he has shown that people with back issues, hip issues, neck issues, all sorts of issues can actually be helped by leveling the bite, which is why my book is called Whole Health Through Balance. It was a play on the word being level. You need balance in life, balance in nutrition, balance in homeostasis, but you need balance. The real balance is here. That's my wheelhouse. That's where I get you there. I had a bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder. She was like this, right? I put an orthotic in her mouth. She got like this, straight across. Booah. I mean, she could literally take the orthotic out like that. Put the orthotic back in.
In her mouth?
In her mouth.
And how was that used?
I made her level. And remember, because I made her level, and this is where the neurobiological engineers come in, the neuroengineers, all right? We have the fifth cranial nerve, all right, innervates this jaw joint. So because I have the biggest cranial nerve that I have influenced to go, that same cranial nerve anastomosis with the 7th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th. Well, it's the same thing with patients who have tics and Tourette's or motion disorders. All right. They're all connected. They talk to each other. It's like a motherboard. So if something's off, then you need to go ahead and light switch on, light switch off. All right. You just have to figure out where the switch went off. And that's what we do. That's what Dr. Fonder did. And that's what Dr. Price did. And his own way, that's what Dr. Lee did. And that's where they're amazing. And that's what I would really like to see them being taught again in dental schools, because they figured it all out.
Mhm.
It's out there. You can't put the bag, you can't close the bag out again. It's like it's done.
Yeah. So what do you think? Why do you think dentists have gone into their dental box and they basically just do cleanings and dental care, and then you're out the door? And if you're sick for something else, they'll send you to a different person. Even if they even send you, they might not even send you anywhere. They just leave it on to chance that you will discover it. Why do you
Or that you'll
think?
go away.
Oh, that you'll go away. Exactly. So why do you think dentistry? Because I think it was Dr. Al Fonder, he lived to 2003. So he's the one that lived the longest. Weston Price lived till 1948, and Royal Lee lived to 1967. So why do you think that, and 2003, that's not that far. That's, 21 years ago. So what do you think has happened to kind of isolate dentistry to just do dental work?
Now we're getting into the politics of things.
Okay.
But I can give you 3 answers.
Okay.
1, they're programmed that way.
Okay.
2,
That's a
they're
good one.
taught that way.
Simple.
Then follow the money.
Okay. That's all you need to say. That's all you need to say, because, we ourselves, we need to learn these truths. And that's what we talk about here in the classroom. We talk about the truths that no one else is talking about, because, hey, I've had 60 classes taken off my YouTube channel in the last year and a half, because those are things that people don't like you to play in their sandbox. So they're going to be taking these videos out. So it's harder and harder for you to find these truths. Go to whenyouneedafriend.com. While you're there, please subscribe to the channel so that you can continue learning these truths. So you can learn these truths from Dr. Claire Stagg and from other teachers that are in the classroom. And while you're there, please subscribe, like and follow me on all social media. While you're there, make sure that you check out my sponsors, support sponsors like Dr. Claire Stagg and all the other sponsors as well, like they are supporting the classroom. While you're there, also check out the Shop Now bag. These are all Lily approved products. I know that we just had an event in April and we had a lot of the Lily approved products there. And just know that we're going to be having the next one. So make sure you save the date. I think it's going to be February 22nd, but I haven't confirmed totally February 22nd, but I think that that's the date that it's going to be in 2025. And we're going to be focusing on cancer and autoimmune diseases. And I'm sure once we get Dr. Claire Stagg back, she will have a lot to say about that. And so also you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation. It's getting more and more expensive to do these classes. So if you can help with whatever you can, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, sharing this video, writing a comment, putting some emojis, whatever, that will help the algorithms get off our back so that you can see the classroom. So I want you to consider, if you're looking to tithe, give generously, because the classroom needs your help. So today we have Dr. Claire Stagg in the classroom, and we are talking about her mentors, why she is as passionate as she is. By the way, I love Dr. Stagg. And I love the fact that she is so passionate about getting to the root cause. And I don't think I've ever even had a physician as willing to dig deep, roll up sleeve, and figure out outside the box what could be causing your condition. I just went to her clinic not too long ago and learned that my facial structure has changed. And I've said this to my husband, I look different. I don't know why I look different, but I look different. And so I'm working with Dr. Claire Stagg to figure out how we can get this balance back into my life. And as you know, I'm taking the whole month of May off. So I'm excited that we get to bring her into the classroom so that you can learn these truths. If you want to learn more and you want to be a part of Dr. Stagg's group and the people that are going there. Yep. Oh yeah. Or get her book. Yeah. Better yet, get her book. May 7th, it comes out. You can go to smileprofessionals.com. If you're a subscriber to the show, all you need to do is click on her name. Now, if you would like a consult, that you would like to talk to Dr. Stagg, and there are certain things that she requires of you to do before she speaks with you, you can reach out. You can go to healthconnectionsdentistry.com. That's Health Connections Dentistry. That's where you're going to be able to watch her Zoom event, her coming out party with Smile. It's all connected, whole health through balance book. And it's an encyclopedia, just like,
Yes.
just like Dr. Fonder's book. You can leave it by your bedside. And if somebody tries to rob you, you can hit them over the head with the book as well as educate yourself.
Yeah.
So Dr. Stagg, share what, if somebody would like to meet with you online virtually before they come to see you, what is required of them?
So, well, it all depends on what, I could chat with anybody. If you want to chat, that's fine. If it's a clinical issue, then the more data that I have, the better. And I think that's what you were trying to bring across to them, is actually having records, radiographs, pictures, are really helpful. But all I can really do is give you a second opinion. Nothing beats one-on-one, because energetically and intuitively, I pick up on a lot of stuff when you're in the chair too. And I think people open up a lot more to me when they're there. That, I mean, we could always do a Zoom or a webcam situation. That's not, but I always think that it always boils back to knowing why. So I can give you an idea and I'll be happy to, or I can tell you, you know what, this is what I think might be going on. Why don't you check with your physician about XYZ? Or sounds like you have this. Why don't you go have a sleep study or whatever? And lots of times that's just enough to get the person started on their path. But again, this is what I wanted to tell you about the momentum of change, how you've been shut down. This is why I wrote this book, because what happened is I was in your situation. I was in the situation of all the moms out there. Nobody knew anything. Nobody could answer me. My daughter was hurt. I was always trying to help everybody. And it was like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of seeing these people not get well. Let me find out why. I deep dove into thousands and thousands of hours of research, and I put it together for you, for the layperson. Now, if doctors read this, more power to them, because then it'll help them understand how it's connected, because that's not in their training. It wasn't in mine. But that was my goal, was to change the demand. Because if the demand, which is you and me and everybody else out there, every single person out there who wants to know why, that it's in the book. But if the demand is there and it changes, the supply will have to change.
That's right.
And
That's right.
that would be the goal, is to get the all this book back in the schools.
Yes, absolutely. So when you're looking at the whole person,
Yes.
is this something that, because I know that you offer the whole enchilada, or you can offer the low-hanging fruit, whatever it is that they want in through, once you do the testing and all of that, each individual can choose how deep they want to go into this
Correct.
path. How do you know when deep is deep enough?
So this is what I was telling you. When they come in, we usually have everybody come in for an initial comprehensive examination. And when you've been doing this as long as I have, I see you here. Well, you are here, but I already see you there. I already see you well. And my gift is connecting the dots. My gift also is with all the arrows that I have in my quiver. And that's where the thousands of hours of research and studying and all the extra degrees and fellowships and masters and all that stuff. It's all those were information things that in my brain, it's like, okay, so this is you here, but I already know you have these issues. Let me get the data to corroborate what I think is going on, but I can't do this on my own. Let's get a team involved. That's where I'll tell you, okay, let's do this, let's do that, or go see a cranial sacral therapist, go see a chiropractor. Lily, you have some people who are in total denial, who don't understand this, and it's just too much and they get overwhelmed. You got some people who want to get well and say, tell me more. And then that's when we'll do records. But then you have some people who say, you know what, I just want my teeth clean. I just want my fillings done. And then we'll go ahead and we'll say, okay, then let's do that. I'm not going to turn anybody away because they it's their choice. It's always their choice. I'm just the light on their path. But I would not rest well at night if I didn't show them what's on their path, because there could be a lot of pit holes in their path or potholes in their path. And it's like, are you aware that if you don't breathe, you could die? It's that simple, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that if you don't eat properly, you could end up with liver problems? I mean, you got kids that have fatty liver disease. What the heck? Fatty liver disease was something that only alcoholics, quote unquote, or drug addicts, quote unquote, got, right? You've got kids that have diabetes. You've got kids that are endocrinologically challenged, stunted growth. They're ready to be put in mental institutions. Why? Because they're not breathing the right way. You got kids that have sleep apnea that has some indices that are higher. I mean, they are so high, they make you cry of despair. And then all you can do is you can say, all right, well, this is what I tell every person who walks in my door. You know what? I can't fix the past, but what I'm here, and God always brings you to my door when you're ready. And then it's up to you. All I can do is tell you what I think, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do. It's your choice. It's always your choice. Always your choice.
Very good. So if I were to ask you, so what is the one thing for each of these teachers, that mentors that you, one thing that if you could take one thing from Weston Price, from Dr. Fonder, and Dr. Lee, one thing of each, what would you say you've brought to your practice?
You are what you eat.
Okay.
Because once you eat right, you develop right, you grow right, and then you breathe right.
Okay. So what is the right way to eat?
Well, it ties back to what we were talking about earlier on, is to make sure that you have a nutritionally balanced diet.
Unfortunately, many people think that a nutritionally balanced diet is a soda, a Twinkie, and, you know, a green lollipop. You know, that's what it's, or macaroni and cheese.
Green.
Yeah, it does have that's why I said green lollipop, because every meal should have something green, because it's not easy being green, right? So
you know what? You know one thing I used to tell my kids every day, because we used to do lunch boxes together. I would say, is there something still alive in that box? Was it an apple? Was it a banana? Was it a vegetable? And did you still have something alive?
That's a great question to ask and challenge. You know, when my kids were little, they wanted to eat all these cereals for breakfast, and I wouldn't let them have the cereals they wanted. So I gave them some parameters. As long as it's less than 12 grams of of sugar. And that back then was like really for me, that was high. That was high. And I was a good compromise, because I looked at others and it was awful. Now, today I wouldn't do that. Today I would have fruit, and I would have other things for my children. I would even mix it with avocados so that we could get that fat in there as well. But I know that's how I was able to compromise so that they could have something quick. And as a mom, a busy mom, that was easy on me too. So advice for the first meal of the day to start the child right, what would you say is important to have that on the table?
Well, I could tell you what not to do is not to have cereal laden with sugar. I could tell you not to have a bunch of processed white bread, I could tell you not to have the Twinkies and or the Pop-Tarts, God forbid. I mean, I'm sorry, Pop-Tart people or cereal people, but and also milk, because there's a lot of kids that are reacting to the products that are in the milk too. You know, you have the casein, you have all the issues with A2, casein or not. You have all that. I mean, I see people when they go have pancakes, what kind of flour are they using in pancakes? And they have a gallon of syrup and butter, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. Can you imagine why they go spastic as when they get to school and then they conk out, they have sugar crashes? So yeah, it's sad. It's really sad what's out there. And the part is they don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
All this is in the book too, by the way. I have a massive section on nutrition all
Yes.
through the book. And that's the beautiful thing, is that if you read the book, it's like a story. You sort of get started and you can't stop, because you'll talk about nutrition, then oops, how it affects you structurally, then oops, how it affects you chemically, then oops, how it affects you functionally. And then which part is affected this way and which part is affected that way. You can't separate it. This is why it's so big, your encyclopedia. It is. Because people kept saying, we got to make it 16, 20 books. It's like, how can you break it down? It's one body. And exactly the nutritional part, I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to breathe. Being
Okay.
able to breathe.
So let's talk about the flower on the cover of
Yes.
your book. These are the principles you have brought to your practice. So let's
Correct.
talk about those principles.
All right. So what I did is I broke the book down. I was meditating and I thought, okay, I tried to make it symbolic, and that the wave is the water is the balance. And then you'll notice 3 petals on top and 3 petals below. And then you'll have the light is on top, if you will, the light green, and on the petal inside there was supposed to be teeth and hearts. I was trying to do teeth, dental, and then heart, because it's a book of love. It's a book of togetherness. And so what I did is I created each petal, each heart, and then I put a little petal in there. It's like, oh, there's the molar, there's the dental part, right? So if you'll notice, above the wave, which is balance, there's the light, and inside the petal is the shadow. So you're always clearing out the shadow part of self. And under the wave is the shadow part of self, but there's always light, there's always hope, there's always balance. And so that's the we're all one. We're all part of God, if you will. We're all sparks of God. It's all one. But our biggest, there's a big spiritual and emotional section in the book too, which is one of the petals. So each section is a petal. And it was my way of tying it in all together with something that was peaceful. And it's always a perpetual journey to balance, to seek balance. And we always are actually seeking to be one. And that's why we always feel alone or whatever. It's because we don't tap into source. And so hence the water too was emotion. I mean, there's so much into it. That is more detail on the website.
Will you be describing what's happening, what the cover on your coming out party on May 7th at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time?
I could. It's a very strong, this book is very spiritually driven. It very well is. I mean, if I said I channeled it, I could say I was spiritually gifted with many insights. The ideas came to me after meditation, and I asked God, I said, okay, I've been to all these classes. You've given me all this knowledge. I have a brain. How do you want me to put it out there? What do you want me to do with this? And that's what the book, 10 years. It took me 10 years to have this book in my hand to show it to you right now. 10 years.
How overjoyed are you? How does it feel to have this like baby in your hand? It took you 10 years to birth.
That's exactly it. It's like, oh God, it's like, how long? But it wasn't time. It wasn't time. Had this book come out in 2014, it wasn't time. Nobody would have been ready for it. Are they ready now? And that's where I think what you said about being kicked off, the momentum's too big now.
Yeah.
We're the army. I don't want to say the army. We're the wave. We're the mothers. We're the ones that are driven. We want this for our children. We're going to change the way things are done, because because people need and want to be healthy. They just
Yeah.
don't know how to get healthy.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you studied your mentors and that you've brought a little piece of them into your practice so that we can all experience what it was like to be looked at by a dental physician.
Yes.
So that you can send people to different areas so they can create that whole balance. So if they go to Health Connections Dentistry, is that where they can first of all, there's consultations. They can click on consultations to schedule time
Correct.
with you. And then if they go to healthconnectionsdentistry.com, they can register to be part of your Zoom coming out party.
Yes. Yes. Vanessa would be extremely happy to have you on board. She's
Yes.
organizing it.
So Vanessa, would you like to pop in real quick?
Yes.
We have
Vanessa,
like a minute
talk a little
left.
bit about the
Yes.
podcast. That's her baby. Sorry.
Yes.
Can you fit?
I'm fitting.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Just
So this is Vanessa. Vanessa,
Vanessa.
which is the kind person who's taking over the marketing as well as the PR part of this project. Believe it or not, this is how God works, all right? Vanessa was with me way back when I was putting together all the data, and then she literally printed my entire practice database and a pile of papers this big. Nobody can see the other hand because it's like a foot deep of papers. Then Vanessa had her baby, then Vanessa left, then Vanessa came back, and then, oh, it was the baby the second time around, I forgot. This is Vanessa's third time. So she actually was there at the very, very beginning, and now is actually here for the birthing. And
yes.
she is, she's been tried by my drive, but
Yes.
she has persevered and is on board, and I'm so forever grateful for her. And I'd like you to support her efforts in the podcast because we have 50 available seats, and I really don't want to be by myself, okay? It's my coming out, right?
Share, it's your coming out party. So Vanessa, what do people go? They go to healthconnectionsdentistry.com.
Yep, right there on the homepage, healthconnectionsdentistry.com. There's a link to put your name and email, and then once you get that information out, you'll receive a Zoom link on May 7th. That's when at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when we'll be doing the party. And it is going to be party. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the inspiration and Dr. Stagg has had a lot of endorsers and a great forward from other practitioners from around here. So we're excited to officially launch Smile.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Once again, this is her baby, her new baby. She has another baby, and it's for
Yeah, my
children.
captain.
Your captain, what is it?
IFBI.
AFBI.
Floss, brush, irrigate. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Actually, we're going to republish him with a new cover and everything in 2024 too. So we're excited about that.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for being a part of the classroom and coming every month to share your wisdom so that we can wake up to these new truths. So thank you so much for the two of you for
Yes.
being a part of the broadcast today or the broad class today. And so I want to thank you, all of you. Did you relate to some of these lessons? Make sure you share this video with everybody. Let them know that of the coming out party on May 7th. That's a free event, right? Yes, it is a free event. So make sure you take advantage of learning a little bit more about why this book should be in your hand and not just on my hand and Dr. Stagg's hand. So thank you so much for watching today. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott, Dr. Claire Stagg, and Vanessa wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional experts